We are less than 5 days away from the start of the NBA season, and I cannot wait. Welcome back to another episode of Small Ball with Kenny Beecham. On today's show, we got to talk about the new Kawhi Leonard news. Lonzo Ball is back to playing ball. Come on, man. And then we brought in our friend Keandre Ashley to talk about the 2024 NBA draft class and so much more. Stay tuned. So I'm going to start off this episode by talking from the heart, because Lonzo Ball is back playing basketball. And I try to figure out, like, would I care as much if I wasn't a Bulls fan? Probably not. But Lonzo Ball had gone 1,000 plus days without playing NBA level basketball. That is insane to say aloud. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. She was not in this world just yet when the last time Lonzo Ball played basketball for the Bulls. And for him to come back in this preseason game was so electric. Like I was telling my wife, there's a 0% chance he looks good. It's just a zero. Like, we are here for the cool story to say that Lonzo Ball came back. He's back playing basketball, but I wholeheartedly did not expect him to do anything on the court. It was about the moment. And I think the Bulls did a pretty good job of making sure they got a lot of moments that would have been able to live, even if he had a poor shooting night or he got torched defensively or whatever. Lonzo Ball, first game in 1,000 plus days, 15 minutes, 10 points, a steal, a block, a rebound. He actually looked pretty good, man. Now, of course, he wasn't moving as good as he did last time he played for the Bulls. He has an entirely new knee, a procedure that has never been done and been done successfully for a professional athlete to come back to play their sport. He is a one-of-one type of patient, and he's done it. And it's such a cool moment, because obviously we recognize that in order to get to this level, these athletes have to put in so much time, that they have to live, they have to sleep, they have to eat basketball. And Lonzo did that. And he got to the point he was a second overall pick. And we basically watched Lonzo Ball grow up, right? From Ball in the family to him playing and having crazy highlights at Chino Hills, being one of the most dominant high school teams of all time, to get into the league. So it's like, I felt so happy for him to see him check into that game. Again, not expecting him to hit a shot, to him to make a steal. Not only did he steal the ball, he dove out of bounds to keep it in play. When you have that type of knee injury where you have an entirely different knee, they were talking about on the broadcast that they had a cadaver that donated the knee cartilage. That would scare the hell out of me, first of all. And it didn't for Lonzo. He came back on the court, he was moving, he was jumping, he was doing all this stuff, and I'm so very excited. I don't know exactly what his season looks like or his career looks like from here on out, but that moment was great. It completely overshadowed Julius Randle's first game with the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was all about Lonzo Ball, and that was great. And to see the basketball community at large kind of come together and be like, hey, Lonzo, we're happy to have you back, is pretty special. So shout out to Lonzo Ball. Shout out to the Bulls, sneakily playing at a really fast pace right now. I'm saying that was my one thing: be bad, but be fast, and that's what they doing. But a little before we decided to come on and film this show, we got some breaking news from Shams Charania. Los Angeles Clippers star Kawhi Leonard is expected to be sidelined for an indefinite period of time to start the NBA season as he rehabilitates the inflammation in his right knee. This is not a surprise. It's not a surprise whatsoever. I mean, he was sent home from the Olympics, and they said he just wasn't ready to play basketball. And as much as he tried to downplay the media day, how he wants to play all 82, so on and so forth, there was a reason they didn't send Kawhi Leonard home because he's a bad basketball player. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the best in the world, because he just wasn't ready, and he won't be ready for the NBA season. And this may not, on the surface level, seem like anything that's too ridiculous, but if this report was for almost anybody else, I wouldn't be tripping. But it's Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard, of course, has a history of being pretty shush when it comes to his own injury history. There have been plenty of reports of Kawhi Leonard having an injury, and we thinking it's, or at least early on, thinking it won't take him very long to rehabilitate or to come back, and it ends up holding him out for an entire season. I'm scared. I'm frustrated. Like I just mentioned with Lonzo Ball, these players live, eat, sleep basketball. I'm frustrated for Kawhi. I'm frustrated for Clippers fans and everything, but this is just gearing up to be potentially a season from hell. They don't own their own first-round pick. Damn. The OKC Thunder own their first-round pick. And the OKC Thunder have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, J-Dub, Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein, who is also injured. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit. And you're trying to tell me that because Kawhi Leonard won't be ready to start the season, hell, who knows when we'll be ready, they're going to swap picks with the Clippers and potentially get another top 10 pick? It's insanity, bro. It is really insanity. And listen, I don't think the Clippers have made a ton of bad decisions. I know that may sound crazy because this whole run with Kawhi Leonard on the team and Paul George being on the team has only resulted in one conference finals appearance. But if you ask every single general manager at the time, if you have an opportunity to go get Kawhi Leonard, who was coming off an NBA championship run, where it's one of the most dominant individual playoff runs of all time, him coming off of that season, and he said, hey, I want to come to your team. I want to bring my homie who was top 3 in MVP the last season. Every single general manager in basketball is saying yes to that deal. And if you're saying that you wouldn't, that's revisionist history. You are lying to yourself because Kawhi Leonard was about that. And Paul George was about that. So I don't think they made a mistake there. I think the lone mistake that they made, and this happens a few months back, was giving Kawhi Leonard the extension. Like, I understand. He is one of the few people that gave the Clippers a chance. He made the Clippers relevant again. You know what I'm saying? Like, shout out to Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. We were a few years removed from that, the Lob City days, and they were looking for relevancy. Now, they did have the series against the Warriors where they were down by 30 points in the fourth quarter, came back. That was a pretty special year with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as a rookie and so on and so forth. But the Clippers, say what you want about these last couple of years of being a playoff team and losing the first round and only having a couple playoff appearances where they got out of the first round. We always had to consider the Clippers, regardless. Even Kawhi Leonard coming off an ACL tear when it happened in Utah, or it happened in LA against Utah. We had to consider the Clippers being healthy and them being a contender, so on and so forth. So I don't think they made a mistake by bringing these guys in. The mistake was extending Kawhi, knowing his history, and not really being under pressure to do so. Kawhi Leonard was not an upcoming free agent. He was not hitting the 2024 free agency class. Even if he was, what team out there had the money to go get him other than, I guess, the 76ers, who got Paul George? But like the market, it wasn't really there for him. Same thing with their guy, James Harden. Them giving him $30+ million a year is mind-blowing to me. They've made a couple bad decisions in this last 6 months or so. And I'm just completely frustrated. I know Sam Presti's rubbing his hands together like Birdman, man. He cannot wait to see exactly what that pick turns into. Because in my mind, when anything I see Kawhi Leonard is sidelined, I'm expecting a month minimum. Hell, this could be a week thing. I just highly doubt it's a week thing. And even if Kawhi Leonard was healthy, this team just doesn't have enough to be really successful anyway. And they just, of all the teams in basketball, I may have made this point before, they might be in the worst place of all of them as far as the long term. Because Kawhi, let's hypothetically, you're Steve Ballmer, you're the people in charge of that. You say, hey, the Kawhi Leonard thing hasn't really worked out. We're going to call the other 29 general managers of basketball. Hey, Kawhi Leonard is available. How many of them are picking up the phone and really entertaining anything? Like, sure, some teams might take some shots, but you ain't about to get 3 first-round picks. You're not getting a Mikal Bridges package. You're not getting a Kevin Durant package or so on and so on. No. He's damaged goods, and that's insane because, again, 2 NBA playoff runs where he was spectacular. Damaged goods. James Harden, $30+ million for the next couple of years. Nobody wants that. So their whole way of breaking it down and doing this is just non-existent. And they don't own the rights to their own pick for 5 years. Like, they have a couple swaps in there with OKC, but OKC, as you know, is going to be a team that's winning 50+ games for the next 5 years. So they're in a terrible spot. I'm taking like the possibility of the Washington Wizards taking Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey. I'm taking a possibility of the Brooklyn Nets. And I think the Brooklyn Nets have a real road to success again. This year, be awful. Go get a top 3 overall pick, whoever it may be. Next year, $75 million in cap space. Go get a guy. Do what the Houston Rockets did. And boom, we're back to at least, okay, we're never going to be the team in New York. I'm sorry. Even with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the team, you weren't the team in New York. But we could still turn ourselves to a competent NBA team like that, even if we only have our own first-round pick one of the next 4 years, whatever the number is. Clippers are in the bad spot. New arena, though. New arena. Cleans up everything. What I wanted to do early in this episode, though, was to come in here and say whether I'm buying or selling on random things happening in the preseason. I've been locked in the preseason. It's kind of sad in a way, because I told my wife the 22nd is when basketball starts at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and I'm kind of non-existent until midnight or further beyond that. I kind of moved that timeline for another week or two and earlier. It's like, oh, okay. Ben Simmons versus Kyle Kuzma preseason. I can convince myself that's worth watching. So I did. So I asked people at home to give me stuff, and I'll tell you if I'm buying or selling these things going on the preseason. Because while you should be taking preseason with a grain of salt, there are things that I think should transition over. The first one comes from Autistic Bucks fan. Bucks rookie AJ Johnson getting playing time and actually being a rotational piece. Are you buying or selling AJ Johnson? A rookie in this class that when he was drafted, a lot of people were like, oh, that's somewhat of a reach. We have him in the 50s. We have him in the 60s. Hell, he wasn't even on some big board. They took him in the first round. He was playing overseas for the same team LaMelo Ball played for, and he was averaging like 3 points per game. He wasn't getting a lot of burn. But he obviously has something. Like I've seen him now in Summer League. I've seen him in a few preseason games. But him contributing to this team, I'm going to say sell as a rookie. Because you got to think about what the aspirations are for the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Unless you see a major injury, which I guess they're already dealing one with Chris Middleton. Unless you see a major injury, I don't think there's a lot of opportunity for him for Doc Rivers to say, hey, 18, 19-year-old kid, go run our offense for us. And I'm looking at their depth chart, and they brought in DeLon Wright this offseason, good basketball player. They're hoping for a Pat Connaughton resurgence, shoot some threes, hit some threes. Taurean Prince is a real rotational player. What surprised me, though, is like Ajax, Andre Jackson Jr., who was drafted from UConn a few years back. I saw him as a pretty interesting prospect, as a defensive-oriented guy, a Matisse Thybulle type of dude. Is the offense ever going to come? Probably not, but hell, he could defend his ass off. In the preseason, AJ Johnson's getting a lot of minutes over him. In the Bulls game from a few nights ago, Ajax played 6 total minutes, and those total minutes were at the end of the fourth quarter, while AJ Johnson got burned in the first quarter. So I think he's already higher on the depth chart as some guys like Marjon Beauchamp, who was also drafted a few years back, and Ajax. But I still find it hard to believe that the veteran coach of Doc Rivers with this team trying to win a championship would go to the young guy. Now, they are the youngest team in basketball, right? So, I mean, the oldest team in basketball. So maybe they're looking for some of that young juice to come in and dunk the ball and do some crazy highlights because he's good for that. But I just really don't see it. The next one, Bobcat EJ. Says, do you buy or sell the Cavs getting better by only changing their head coach? I'm going to buy this. Now, there are a few teams in basketball that are going through this exact thing. We have pretty much the exact same roster, and what we did was change the coach. Obviously, the LA Lakers out west is another prime example of this, where they brought back pretty much everybody, drafted Dalton Connect, drafted Bronny James, and said we're running it back. This one I'm more confident in than the Lakers one, and I like the Lakers one too. Shout out to JJ Redick. But the one thing that was missing when I was watching the Cavs is that their offense wasn't as creative as some of the other teams in basketball. And JB Bickerstaff is a defensive-minded coach, and we all recognize that the Cavs have been a really good defensive team over the last couple seasons. Kenny Atkinson kind of has his balance of the things where he's running certain stuff that is really intriguing, and I think can put Evan Mobley and Darius Garland back in a positive light. So I'm gonna go with yes here, because I am a firm believer in being patient with the Cleveland Cavaliers, specifically if Donovan Mitchell is okay with it. Obviously, his timeline is the timeline, in my opinion. It's just rare you're going to get a player of that caliber, and he's one of the whatever best players in the world. But if he's signing on there and said, hey, I'm completely okay with this, I would rather them chill for a season, see what they have in Kenny Atkinson, see if you can get that jump from Evan Mobley, see if you can get Darius Garland back in the right light before we do the thing that a lot of people want them to do, is trade Jared Allen. Can't do that now. He just signed an extension. Can't do that until February. Trade Darius Garland. I mean, the numbers will support that the Cavs were better when it was just Donovan Mitchell on the court, but I also think that was a product of JB Bickerstaff not putting these guys in the perfect situation to succeed. Now, if it happens for another year, we can have these conversations. We transition to a new coach. We got a whole new system, and Darius Garland is still not being the version of him that we want him to be. He's still not getting put in the position to be successful. Then let's have those conversations. But there's no real reason when you have a team this young, in my opinion, to really blow things up and try to sell here or buy here. So let's be real. The Eastern Conference is really, really tough right now. And I don't know if trading Darius Garland is going to get you anything to be a contender right now. I don't know if trading Jared Allen is going to get you anything to be a contender right now. So let's chill, be okay with being the 4 seed, maybe surprise some people being the 3 seed, but recognizing like the Celtics kind of got this on lock right now. I mean, every giant falls eventually, but they kind of got this on lock. And maybe we'll wait out the Celtics because they won't be this same team for 2 more years. It's literally impossible for them to be the same team for 2 years. So maybe we'll wait them out and we'll be the next team. Because in 2 years, Paul George will be, 37 years old? Joel Embiid will be 32 years old. Yeah, that's a competitor. The New York Knicks are already hell expensive when you talk about adding OG Anunoby's contract and what you have to extend Mikal Bridges for. And you have Karl Anthony Towns, the 7th most expensive player in basketball. Some of these teams won't look exactly the same in a few years. And our core is 26 years old, 23 years old, 24 years old, and 27. If we can hold put and just get gradually better while our opponents get worse, I'm here for that. Next one comes from a guy that will be appearing on the show one day. Spoiler alert, our boy 3Comb. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's increased three-point volume and efficiency. Are you buying or selling? I am buying it, baby. There are a few things for the OKC when I watched last season that I thought need to be better. A, get Josh Giddey off the goddamn court. They did that. They did that. And I just watched Josh Giddey miss 4 layups in a basketball game last night. 4 of them. He's off their team. They got a real player in return. So that's done. Go get more rebounding. Isaiah Hartenstein out with an injury. Will be sidelined for at least a month. Unfortunate, but he's a guy that will come in and help them get some of those rebounds that they missed in the Dallas Mavericks series that led to open three-pointers. Cool. And then the last one, they just didn't get the volume of three-pointers up that their opponents did. And they were one of the 3 best three-point shooting teams of basketball when it comes to efficiency. They just needed more volume. You see that already in preseason, where J-Dub is attempting, 9 threes a game in preseason. Shai is not only attempting threes, they're like pull-up threes. And Shai is in his own group of thing. It's like 3 or 4 players in basketball that are in this same group. That when they shoot threes, it looks like it's hurting. DeMar DeRozan is there too. I am so accustomed to seeing these 2 dudes take long mid-ranges or get to the basket that when they do shoot threes, it's like, ew. Okay, cool. But ew, that's what Shai's in right now. And he had a couple pull-up threes the other night against I forget which opponent it was. But I'm buying not just Shai, but the team having that as a point of emphasis because, well, that's a point of emphasis for everybody right now. Phoenix Suns, we talked about it last episode. Coach Budenholzer has been very apparent about what his goal is. Billy Donovan in Chicago said, hey, we're going to be a 3-point shooting team. I know they're not in the same level as these other teams, but regardless. Michael Porter Jr., Denver Nuggets said, hey, we're going to shoot more threes this season. All of these teams that were lower towards the bottom of the league when it comes to 3-point attempts seem like they're trying to get higher on that list. Even like the Clippers, who are going to miss Kawhi Leonard again, they're trying to create more 3-pointers. You know what the pick and roll is going to be between Harden and Zubac, but it's like, can we create more threes for these other guys? And that's the way basketball is. And this is something I'm workshopping, so don't take it as face value. I'm still working on this, and we probably has to give it 2 more years before this becomes a real opinion. But there are a few super influential teams in the history of basketball, and I'm only going to go through my lifetime. I'm sure there are teams in the 90s that were super influential and so on and so forth. The first one that comes to mind is the 7 seconds or less D'Antoni offense, where they made it a normal thing for teams to run this small ball 4 thing. It's Sean Marion and so on and so forth. We're going to get a lot of threes up. We're going to play fast. That was pretty much an anomaly at that time. I actually went back to watch some games from this era, and the spacing still bothers me to this day. But as a kid, I didn't think anything of it. So they're one of the more influential teams. Another more influential team is also a D'Antoni team. It's the Morey ball threes and layups. This also is where teams start to transition to taking more threes, prioritizing not just any threes, but corner threes, where guys like PJ Tucker get a real NBA career because he's dynamite from there. And he also defends very well, recognizing that the corners are shorter than every other point of the court. Then you have the Warriors, their motion offense, their death lineups. And people were trying to replicate that so much that the Atlanta Hawks tried to literally 1-to-1 replicate that. Think about it. This is a real thing. There's Steph Curry. It was Trae Young. Well, he did get some Steph Curry comps once upon a time, only because he can shoot the 3-point ball and he's a smaller dude. Because that's good playmakers. That's the only thing that really. There, Klay Thompson was supposed to be Kevin Huerter. Do you remember when Kevin Huerter got drafted with Omari Spellman? And Omari Spellman was supposed to be their Draymond Green. They had the recipe so great with the Warriors that other teams were trying to replicate it to a T. Then I think that the 2023-2024 Celtics they could potentially be there. Again, something we're workshopping. We have to give it a few more years to see what the opposing teams across basketball decide to do. But I think the teams are going to try to mold their teams around what the the Celtics did last season. So keep that in mind. Bookmark this into the end of 2024. And then once we start in the 2026-2027 season, we'll see how right or wrong I was about this one. A few more before we get into our guests. Ryan Barthart said, are you buying or selling the Warriors being a very good basketball team? Yeah, I think I'm kind of buying it. Let me explain. In my mind, the Western Conference are in 4 to 5 real tiers. I mean, the bottom 2 tiers we don't really give a damn about. But tier number 1 is OKC, Dallas, and Denver. Those are the 3 teams in the Western Conference that I think can come out and win the damn thing. Then we got tier number 2 of Minnesota, Phoenix and Memphis. All of these guys have the potential to do that, but I feel like I got to see more. I got to see what Julius Randle looks like for a full season or a couple months. I got to see if the Bud Ball is real. I have to see what Memphis looks like when they're completely healthy. And then in tier number 3, we have the Warriors, the Lakers, the Kings, the Rockets, and Pelicans. And of those 5 teams, I think I trust the Warriors the most to get to a tier 2 team. And part of that, and I made a tweet about this, and I still don't really know. I have to go into a real film study, but part of me is like, the season starts in 4 days. Do I want to be, doing film studies on preseason basketball? That it feels like the Warriors offense from this preseason has evolved. And obviously it's very similar sets and everything, but I feel like they've gone to a whole nother level because there was a once upon a time where there were a group of NBA players that legitimately could not play for the Warriors. Everything was too complex. The D'Angelo Russells, the Kelly Oubres of the world, good basketball players, but could not survive in the Warrior system because it was so much of, I don't know, what was it, more read or react or whatever? Those guys just could not hang. And I think their next evolution is having it so that these younger dudes can come into their team and be successful players without us having to bat an eye on whether or not he can play for this team. I like their roster a lot, and I'm liking what I'm seeing in preseason. Again, maybe not should be taken at face value, but I'm like, what am I seeing? What am I seeing different? What is the evolved version of this team? And then I remember this offseason, they did bring in Terry Stotts. And Terry Stotts doesn't get the credit that he deserves for what he did with Portland offensively. Of course, Portland has one conference finals run in the Damian Lillard era, which again is hella impressive. But still, that team with Dame and CJ, they had a really well-constructed offense. And I'm watching Damian Lillard stuff, or remembering Damian Lillard stuff where it's like who is it? Was it like Enes Cancer is at the elbow, Dame left wing, CJ McCollum top of the key, and we're watching CJ McCollum cut off of an Enes Cancer for a back screen. I literally watched the Warriors do that the other night with Jonathan Kuminga. And I'm like, oh, that's real. Terry Stotts has come in and changed some things, and they also are they're also trying to get up more 3-pointers. The team that made 3-pointers, okay, all just said we want to shoot more of them. What the hell? Now, they do have their own question marks of who's going to start, right? We saw Wiggins start the other night because Pods was out for the preseason game. It's okay, can Draymond and Kuminga coexist as a 2 through 4? Because Draymond said he doesn't want to play the 5 full time. So now you got a lineup of really 1+ 3-point shooter. We don't love that. I feel like Pods has to start there, right? So it's okay, does that mean Kuminga comes off the bench? Does that mean Wiggins come off the bench? We don't really know. But these are good options to have. I think that DeAnthony Melton, for what it's worth, I can't believe he's still only 26 years old, is a good basketball player. And he's had his back problems, and that's what's held him out for the majority of last season. Positive 3-point shooter. Buddy Hield. I'm not buying into the Buddy Hield stuff again. I've done it for 3 years in a row. But for what it's worth, also one of the greatest shooters of all time. How much does he impact winning basketball? Numbers say he doesn't. Somehow. But they have the people around Steph Curry, in my opinion, to alleviate some of the pressure and also fit the new system. So I'm kind of buying into them more than I'm buying into some of these other teams. It was between them and the Lakers, who we talked about last episode. But again, it's the Lakers, right? Only a few more last one before we get out of here. Comes from Joey. Joey says the Heat playing at a fast pace. And he said, finally, unfortunately, Joey, I'm going to heavy sell this one. Through the Jimmy Butler era, they have been bottom 3 in pace every single year. I knew they were a slow team. I didn't think they were that slow of a team. What I will buy is the 5-out offense of the Miami Heat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're running 5-out offense. They didn't do it much last season because Bam Adebayo wasn't a threat there, but now he's attempting 3-pointers a game, and they're legitimately running 5-out offenses. And one thing that I made it a note in their last game versus the San Antonio Spurs is not only this 5-out offense, because there is varying degrees of success when it comes to 5-out, because when you ingrain it in your mind so much, you feel like that's the only way you can really play. So sometimes it was nothing is happening. It's 5 seconds left. Here goes your step back 3-pointer. No movement, no nothing. But the cool thing about it is eventually they start to really open up, and then they were doing some weak side screens and stuff, and then Nikola Jovic would have Chris Paul on his back, and Nikola Jovic said coming into the season he wanted to punish defenders more, or teams more, for switching defenders. He punished Chris Paul, and I'm like, okay, all right, Jovic. He said he put on 30 pounds a month. Okay, I'm excited to see what that looks like. So while I don't believe they're going to be a fast-paced team, I do believe they're going to run some 5-out offense, and their offense will be something that we consider at least okay, because throughout the Jimmy Butler era, they've had offenses and great defenses. I think their offense could be pretty okay. Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero haven't played a ton together. Okay, I'm interested in what it looks like. I've been okay with this so far through preseason. So that's the last one. I'm selling them being fast pace. I'm buying the 5-outness. Okay, now you let me know in the comment section what you're buying or selling with preseason. Next thing we got is our boy Keandre Ashley, also known as Hoop Intellect, is coming onto the show. He is a NBA draft expert, a guy that I've been watching for some time because I need some help when it comes to the incoming draft class. So we talk about all of the incoming rookies that you should care about. Let's get into it. Now I want to welcome in a very special guest, Keandre Ashley, also known as Hoop Intellect over on YouTube. Brother, I brought you here to talk some NBA draft prospects. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you for having me on the show for sure.
You were my number one choice, man. Even before I met you, I was watching your stuff on YouTube, didn't even know. And then we ran into each other at Summer League a few years back. And then I had to get a face for the name. Really enjoy your work. And there was no person I wanted to talk about the 2024 draft with more than you. So appreciate it. You are actually the first small ball with Kenny Beecham guest, man.
Hey man, I'm definitely honored. I've been watching your stuff for a minute now, since like high school. So it's definitely an honor to be one of the first the first guest on, small ball.
Yeah, ain't no problem, man. So let me explain to the people at home what's going on. We got the NBA draft lottery. We decided that it would be cool to kind of grade these prospects based on their fit with their team. It could be short term, it could be long term, it could be really whatever. It just gives me a way to kind of lock into the 2024 draft. For the people at home that aren't aware, I am not really a draft guy. I usually start to learn about the draft prospects like 2 to 3 weeks before the draft because we usually do like this big draft show. And again, Hoop Intellect's videos is really carried a brother, man. So appreciate that again. So let's start off with first overall pick. Zachary Richese. Still don't even know if I'm pronouncing the brother's name right, man. But how are we feeling about him? He probably is, when it comes to first overall picks through history, probably has the least amount of pressure of any first overall pick, like ever. Like legitimately, I was going through it. I'm like, well, even like Anthony Bennett had pressure as a rookie. Even, Markelle Fultz had pressure, even if it didn't turn into anything. Richese is just kind of existing, man.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a really weird combination of things, just from there not being a consensus number one and him, playing, in Pro A over in France last year and just not having a lot of people familiar with what he brings to the table. But I think this Atlanta situation is a pretty good one for him and his skill set. And, if I had to give it a grade in terms of a tier or anything, I would give it probably a B. I think just for what he brings to the table, you've got a guy like a Trae Young who can set him up and allow him to, play his game as a play finisher, that 3-and-D type of guy, and really just not have to feel pressure to do anything spectacular or go create or be somebody that he's not. He's kind of just, ready-made to come in and fill a role. And from what we've seen in preseason, the couple games that he's played, I wouldn't be surprised if he even, ends up starting in a couple months.
Yeah, no, it jumped out to me when I watched him. I mean, was there in Summer League, obviously. And it was weird for him and the number 2 overall pick, Alex Sarr, to see each other in Summer League, and nobody cared. It was like, where's Bronny? Where's Bronny? But no, I gave it an A, mostly because I feel like these wings, when they come into the league, not many have an elite level ball handler / playmaker like Trae Young. Again, it's now that we add that there's almost zero pressure on him. This is like the perfect scenario. And I was thinking about all the other teams drafted around him. Like if he would have been in Washington, I feel like that would have potentially be a nightmare because he would have probably been asked to create for himself a little bit more than what he's capable of right now. I think this is a cool fit, man. Listen, I'm a guy that, because we've been without basketball for so long, I've been into preseason as if it is the NBA Finals. And I'm a fan. I can't lie to you. I'm a fan. I know that when he was playing overseas, he basically had like a half of a season of shooting well. Like everything else was like 28%, 29%. But he had a really good stretch of shooting. And I was kind of expecting that shooting to be like his main thing. But he was putting the ball on the floor. It seemed like he was at the right place, right time. Defensively, I'm like, okay, I understand it, especially if Alex Sarr was saying that he didn't want to be there anyway. So this is kind of the guy for the job. So I gave it an A, man.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree. I was in there between B and A. I think that, you made a good point in terms of like him going to Washington and probably having a little bit more to do in terms of creation. That would be at least bring a little bit more pressure if he was to, have some growing pains in that. So yeah, I like it a lot for him in Atlanta, and I'm really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, the governor, this is a few weeks back before preseason started. He was saying there was a world where they started a lineup of everybody under 25 years old. Now, that's probably dead now because Clint Capella's just better than Onyeka Okongwu at this point in their careers. But like that really interests me to see like a Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Risha Say, and then Onyeka Okongwu. I'm a dude that's convinced myself about the Atlanta Hawks the last 2 seasons. I told myself I wasn't going to fall for it again. But then I'm like, damn, Trae Young is really, really good, bro. And Jalen Johnson just looks like he's getting better and better with time. So I might be talking myself back into the Hawks for the 3rd year in a row, bro. I don't know how. I don't know how I get here.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of been the same theme with a lot of those East teams who aren't necessarily good, but when you watch them, they've got a lot of pieces. You go to Detroit, you see what they're doing and looking a lot like a real basketball team this year. You've got Charlotte, LaMelo, and Brandon Miller and all those guys. So I feel you on that for sure.
Let's move over to the 2nd overall pick, Alex Sarr. I gave it a C. I feel like it's not going to be an easy job, man. It's not. Like, for a guy that seems to be touted mostly on the defensive side of the ball, like that's where he's going to hang his hat. When you have a team this young and this, let's be real, bad, like they're going to be really, really bad this season, it's going to be hard to really see the defensive impact from a player if he's the one that's defending and everybody else really isn't. And also, I think it goes to the same thing about the Trae Young thing. He doesn't really have a creator for him. Like, I know we're probably trusting Jordan Poole this season to be their full-time one. We've watched that job at least a little bit, and I'm not really impressed with it too much. Not saying that Alex Sarr can't be great, obviously, but as far as the fit right now, I'm not loving it.
Yeah, I gave this one a low B, so B minus, basically right next to a C. And the only thing that I would say on that is I do like the addition of Jonas Valanciunas and having him as a guy who can play alongside him in the front court, allow them to, play different lineups at the 4 or the 5. They've kind of experimented with that in this preseason. And the way that he shot the ball from 3, I think has been, really positive for his ability to play the 4 offensively. But like you said, Jordan Poole being your main playmaker for a guy who's finishing plays isn't necessarily the type of context that's going to, be perfect for him. Now, Malcolm Brogdon, if he's able to come back and play for this team, he could be a nice plus for that. But I do agree, for somebody who does, impact the game first and foremost on the defensive end, and you've got guys, again, Jordan Poole, not the best defender, and everybody else is a little sporadic besides Bilal. That could be a little bit more difficult.
Now, you mentioning Val makes sense to me because I guess it was one of the reasons why he was really interested in Atlanta. They were probably going to try to run him at the 5 full time. So I kind of forgot about Val being there. And I think that you convinced me to maybe up my grade just a little bit because they are putting him in the position he's the most comfortable with. And there are a lot of times we see rookies get into situations where they have to be the one to adapt. And it makes sense, right? You're the 19-year-old. Why should we cater to you? But when it's a team that's, even though they've been bad for a long time, they're pretty early in their rebuild. So to see, we got the 2nd overall pick, let's put him in the position where he feels the most comfortable and see what happens then. And honestly, he might transition to a 5-year, 2-year, 3 of his career anyway. But for him to come in and be able to play alongside Val, I'll up it. I like it. You convince me. Let's go to Reece Shepherd, man. Reece Shepherd, he's I saw somebody say, and man, I wish I would have took notes when I heard it because it was on the podcast and I listened to a lot of NBA podcasts, that he is the closest prospect we've had to Steph Curry since Steph Curry. And I'm like, I see the shooting numbers, right? The shooting numbers, shooting 50% from this, 50% from that, so on and so forth. But we talk about Wardell, Stephen Curry, the second, the junior. Tell me, is that person tripping or is that real?
I can kind of see where they're coming from in terms of play style a little bit, in terms of just like the volume of shots and where they're coming from on the floor and just kind of his overall feel for the game. I think that's an underrated part of what Steph brings to the table. But that is such a lofty, I stay away from that because that's arguably the first or second best point guard of all time and arguably the greatest shooter to ever, touch a basketball. And that's going to continue to be the case for probably a really long time. So that's kind of difficult to put on somebody. But I still like Reed. And I think that even within this context with Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet ahead of him, I like the fit and what he's able to do, especially in that second unit. So I would give this a B. And long term, I actually think this is probably, has the potential to be even higher than that. I just think, a guy like him who can play on and off the ball, shoots it at a really high clip, makes plays defensively in the way that he does, and just has a knack for being productive in every single second that he's out there, is going to be a positive asset for this team. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's somebody who you look at those lineup data in the middle of the year, and it kind of points in his favor. So I like this opportunity to play around Şengün and some of these other athletes to insulate him defensively too.
Yeah, we got the same grade here. I watched him check into the game against the Pelicans a few nights back, and he didn't look like a rookie to me in that 6-minute stint. I mean, eventually down the line, I think he turned the ball over a few different times and so on and so forth. But I'm like, man, he does not look like a rookie. And he was basically the most exciting thing about Summer League this year too. And they have a lot going on over there, but I think it's all positive. Like sometimes you can have so much talent that you're trying to figure out what is what. I think that they're kind of, well, Fred VanVleet's contract being up relatively soon and having Amen and having Reed Sheppard kind of getting better throughout their careers, I think it could be an easy transition period between the Fred era to like whatever the next era could be. Would it be in Reed and Amen Thompson? I gave it the same grade, man. I'm excited to see like how much PT he will get as a rookie, because some people are just so damn good that they just make their way into the rotation. And I feel like he's going to be one of those dudes for sure.
Yeah, that was pretty much my justification because, in some other situations, you could see a player like that kind of fall into the background. Maybe they go in the direction where, Amin is able to take on some more ball handling duties and then they kind of fall into the background. But I think that he's just too good that he's just not going to be able to be denied and, mess around. Somebody gets injured, he might, run with one of those spots.
Moving on to Stephon Castle, 4th overall pick to the San Antonio Spurs. He was my favorite draft prospect. I have this thing about defensive guards. A lot of the times I'm completely wrong. Chris Dunn, swing and a miss. But I cannot get away from this archetype of player. Now, obviously, he did a lot more as far as like being the starting point guard or guard on a championship level team over in UConn and everything. And now him being able to learn under the point guard. Like, I don't know how many situations are better. And then you got the alien on the back end. So I also don't know how much he'll play his rookie season, but long term, this is like as perfect of a fit as possible for him.
Yeah, I was really in between B and A for this one, just because it's like he's just going to have being able to play with Wemby for any young player in these next couple drafts or, even previously is like, it would be my priority. I think you saw some of that posturing with Rob Dillingham of all prospects, kind of trying to put himself in that position to play with him. But you've got a transcendent guy like Wemby. Again, you play with a guy like Chris Paul. And also, I think historically what he does defensively matches a lot of what San Antonio has liked in their guards, and really just the versatility, the size. You've got guys like DeJounte Murray, Derek White, I think kind of match a lot of what he brings. So you got all those pieces and factors together, and I think that he's just going to be able to come in and connect in year one, and then eventually we'll see how much he's able to do as a ball handler and distributor, and kind of go from there.
Let's move on to Ron Holland, 5th overall pick, Detroit Pistons. This one was probably the toughest one for me because on surface level, I gave it a D. And that's mostly because last year they also drafted a non-shooting, hella athletic wing. And I kind of just don't know. Like, Cade Cunningham has had no spacing throughout the entirety of his career that I don't really know. I mean, they got one of the best shooting coaches in the league over there now, so maybe that changes some stuff. But I just don't know where he fits in this. But also, like, this is a team that doesn't have anything that you can really attach yourself to other than Cade Cunningham. Like, we're still trying to figure out, is Jalen Duren the center of the future? Is Jaden Ivey a good fit alongside Cade? Asar Thompson feels pretty safe when he gets healthy and everything. But I just don't know how many lineups you're going to be able to run all of the cool young players. And I'm counting Ron Holland as a cool young player, but him and Asar Thompson on the court together could be, I don't really know what to expect from that.
Yeah, I gave it a C. I think the only thing that bumped it up for me was Fred Vinson coming along, the shooting coach from New Orleans. Did a number on Lonzo Ball once upon a time, and Herb Jones as well. And I think, like you said, just contextually, having a guy like Asar already there, hopefully he's able to return as soon as possible. That makes the lineups really difficult, especially when you've got a guy like Tobias Harris in there now. You've got Fontecchio, who looks good. Tim Hardaway Jr. has at least a reputation. Malik Beasley as shooting and spacing the floor. So I think it could be pretty difficult for him early on to really find a spot in the rotation. But at the same time, I love the energy, defensive ability he brings. You've kind of seen that at times in the preseason, kind of getting into scuffles and loose balls and stuff like that. So I think it's a C.
Next one. Oh man, I always butcher it. To Sean Salon. I apologize if I got it wrong again. I'm gonna be honest with you. He was a complete blind spot to me when we was doing the draft coverage with ESPN, which is a blessing. And he got drafted, and I looked at my co-host like, "Don't ask me nothing," because I'm completely unfamiliar with his game. Now I've seen him play a few different times now, whether it be in summer league and then preseason and everything. But before, it was weird to have a prospect drafted this high for me and be like, "Oh snap, I got nothing on this guy." So how are we feeling about him with the Charlotte Hornets?
Yeah, he's definitely still a project, but I think that this situation is pretty good for somebody like him who, is a rangy forward, is able to score in transition, kind of make some plays in all different parts of the floor, and has a ton of confidence. You've already seen that in preseason. He'll pull it from 30 feet. I really like to see that translating early on. And you got guys like LaMelo and Brandon Miller who are going to do the heavy lifting. He's kind of just a guy that I think that is going to fit into the back end of their rotation and kind of just be able to figure things out on the fly for this team. So I like it quite a bit for him. I thought it was a little bit high to take him at 6, but for him personally, the situation is pretty good.
The Hornets did like this, Hard Knocks type of documentary. It was like 15 minutes or so. And they were so in love with the kid after one workout that it made me be like, okay, maybe there's something there. Like you mentioned, obviously a project and everything, but I'm curious to see what that looks like because people are speculating that maybe LaMelo Ball gets traded this season. I'm not buying into it just yet. So I'm going to say if they have their 1A, 1B, because I think that Brandon Miller is the real deal. And they're just looking for like the one that blossoms, just jump off the page success, and it could be him. Then I'm looking at that young core like, okay, LaMelo ankles now, taped up every game, and Mark Williams could get healthy. I'm kind of digging the Hornets at least a little bit this year. We'll see if that backfires. I don't know. Moving on, 7th overall pick, Donovan Clingan. Now, he was also one of the guys from the draft for me. I think I may have just watched too much UConn, and that I fell in love with both of the UConn prospects, but when my favorite team having the 11th overall pick, I'm like, fingers crossed. I don't really want Vucevic on the team. Let's go get a big center that, does this, does that. And he goes to Portland, who already have DeAndre Ayton on a max contract. And in preseason, DeAndre Ayton's looked pretty good. And then they also have Robert Williams. The history of Robert Williams means he's probably not playing this season anyway. But he gets drafted behind 2 other centers. And I hate it for him just because that means that he probably just won't get enough burn compared to some of the other people drafted around him. But how do you see it?
Yeah, I would give this one a B, C, B, somewhere in that sort of situation, just factoring in long term, because I think that, what he brings to the table, especially differing from Ayton as more of a defensive anchor and, having that as one of the places he makes the biggest impact. I think that's something that this Portland team could really use in the long term. But having a guy like Ayton there already in place kind of makes it difficult. But I think just being able to adjust to the conditioning, getting acclimated to the NBA game and spacing and stuff, that could be beneficial for him. So not necessarily the clearest road for, your 7th pick to come in and immediately start, but I think it could still be a good context.
Yeah, I think he's different than like Zach Edey, who we'll get to in a second here, because he didn't play. I mean, he played a lot, obviously, but like Zach Edey was on the court all game, every game, and Donovan Clingan didn't have that luxury. Part of that's because they were blowing everybody out, But also, I didn't really think about him playing behind DeAndre Ayton as like a way for him to adjust to the new speed and everything. He was shooting some threes in the preseason game. I watched him a couple nights ago, and I'm like, okay. Well, let me be honest. Everybody in the goddamn league right now is shooting threes. Every person that was traditionally known as not the guy is doing it. Bam Adebayo, 3-point attempts a game is blowing my mind. I'm happy for it. I'm super happy for it, but it's blowing my mind. Zach Edey has attempted some threes, and they said that he was a knockdown shooter in the workouts and everything, but didn't expect him to come into the league taking some 3-pointers. It's the way basketball is going, and I'm not mad at it, but I don't know. They used to be players like best attribute, and now everybody can do it. It's like, damn, how do I get minutes? Now I actually got to defend. I wasn't used to defending. I was just a shooter, and now everybody's a shooter. For whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be surprised if he's really knocking down threes until like maybe like year 3. He's like a 60% free throw shooter in college too.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But it could happen eventually.
Yeah, that free throw percentage thing usually translates pretty well. Moving on to the next one, everybody's favorite prospect on NBA Twitter, Rob Dillingham, man. Surprised a lot of people. Originally, this pick was the San Antonio Spurs, and we like, no, they just got Stephon Castle and Rob Dillingham. What the hell is going on? But they trade the pick away for a 2031, I think is the year, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is I think a pretty good trade for the San Antonio Spurs, kind of betting against the Wolves being able to stay competent, knowing their history. But he goes to a contending team. Now, that's a lot different than pretty much everybody that's been drafted so far. This team is going out there with Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, now Julius Randle, and so on, trying to win a championship. And they thought, at least, that he would be a guy that would contribute very early on. Now, since then, they've traded for Dante DiVincenzo, so that probably changes his role quite a bit. And even yesterday, when they played against the Chicago Bulls, he didn't check in until late in the fourth quarter. So I'm not completely sure if he'll start into the rotation. But how are we feeling about his fit with Minnesota?
Yeah, so initially I was a little bit higher on the fit until the Dante trade. It looked like he was going to have the perfect opportunity to come in immediately and be their backup point guard, kind of mix in with those other playmakers that they already have. But I gave this a B. I still like the context of having a Rudy Gobert on the backside, a Jaden McDaniels, and Anthony Edwards in terms of like just being able to hide him defensively and also like just give him confidence to do what he does best. And I think Minnesota could also use the type of juice that he could, bring offensively. But at the same time, with with Dante coming in, you've got Josh Minott emerging. It looks like he might be that 10th guy in their rotation. So, just a little bit lower on it than I was, earlier on.
Yeah, I lost that bet because I knew that once they were making this trade that one of the younger dudes was going to have to step up. I put my eggs in the Leonard Miller basket, not him. Josh Minott looks really, really good in preseason so far. So I'm assuming it's going to be him too. I also gave it the same exact grade. I think also learning from old man Mike Conley is going to be pretty cool for his career long term. And they already had some juice when Naz Reid winning Sixth Man of the Year, but getting something like that from the guard position is pretty important as well. And I don't deny, or I can't look past the defensive infrastructure of the Minnesota Timberwolves. That even though he's coming in as this wiry, small guard, that I feel like they'll be able to hold him up when he does finally get playing time. Moving on to the 9th overall pick, Zach Edey, one of the more questionable draft picks, at least in the time, and since then he shut all of that up. I remember seeing a poll before the draft, where's Zach Edey on your big board? And they got most people saying in the 40s, where he goes 9th overall to Memphis. And I don't think there's a better individual fit when it comes to rookies in the entire draft. The Minnesota Timberwolves, the Memphis Grizzlies were a team last time they were really successful. That was a high offensive rebounding team. Don't really make mistakes. They're going to cause a lot of turnovers, so on and so forth. Zach Edey comes in as third in all Division I basketball when offensive rebounding rate. He basically comes in and does everything Steven Adams was doing. But now he can also just give me the ball and I'm bigger than you. The way he made Miles Turner look like a 7-year-old the other night was crazy. And then I watched him play against Vucevic a couple nights before that, and he had a couple post hooks that were like 12 feet away from the basket. Like it was nothing. And again, I seen him at Purdue. You always question some of these really great college basketball players that are slowly footed and so on and so forth. Could they translate? I now have zero doubts in my mind that he'll translate to at least be a starter level center in this league one day. Or I guess now. I mean, he's doing it now, I guess.
Yeah, I also had this as a S tier. This is a perfect fit. We've got a core of teammates that has been good for 50 wins in the West when they're healthy. Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson. You have the infrastructure to really just allow him to come in, set big screens, be a huge rim deterrent just at his size and a drop big in the pick and roll. And I think that it really is perfect. I think the one thing I am still just a little bit curious to see how he looks in terms of defending those, big time pull up shooters in the pick and roll. Can he get enough to the level? Like, what does that look like? And also just moving around if they have him against the pop threat. You saw that a little bit against Miles Turner a few times. But other than that, like you said, his production at the college level was ridiculous. 2-time Naismith Player of the Year, almost single-handedly, led them to a national championship last year. I think that he's gonna have a lot of success and probably be the front runner for Rookie of the Year because he has the time. They're gonna have the people around him to allow him to produce at a high level, and without like the Palos and the Wembies in this class, like I think what he does is gonna probably end up being the most valuable.
Yeah, my wife is not a basketball fan. She'll watch it with me. She'll watch a Bulls game here or there. When he got drafted, she said that she wanted a Grizzlies jersey. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? My wife went to Purdue, but she did online schooling. So in my mind, she didn't go to Purdue. She just did some classes, So she's like, I need to get me a Zach Edey jersey. I'm like, we can get you that, but you got to get it in a 4X because that's the only way to really represent the size of Zach Edey. So we'll be looking out for that in the Beecham household, a Zach Edey jersey. 10th overall pick, Cody Williams to Utah. I first heard the name Cody Williams. We did a live show opening night in Denver, and one of the guys that came to the live show, he was like, yo, I'm I don't know if he said a trainer or like a help, something up on Colorado's basketball team. He's like, man, if you want to take the drive 45 minutes, I could get you to the practice facility. And in any other circumstance, I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. Also open a night for the ring ceremony for Denver. So we want to see the ring ceremony. But that was the first time I heard the name Cody Williams. And he said, you got to see Cody Williams. I'm like, Colorado don't be really producing NBA players like that. We'll see what that look like. Here they are. They produced a few in this draft class alone. I still don't know what to believe about Cody Williams. I mean, Utah is kind of like this blank slate in a way when it comes to their team construction. They're so early on. They're like, he's not really he's competing with a lot of people, but not as though he's competing with somebody that's established. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, Larry Markkinen basically plays 3 through 5 at this point in his career. Who the hell knows? Yeah. But it's like Taylor Hendricks, who I really liked last season. And that's kind of Walker Kessler, but he might be on the move. So he's going to have opportunity. And I think that's probably the best for him.
Yeah, I was kind of struggling what to put for this grade because like you said, they are so early on. There's just like a wealth of opportunity for him to eventually come in the rotation and contribute. And based off of preseason, it looks like he will be in that rotation to start the year. But yeah, just like in terms of what he brings to the table, he's kind of, a jack of all trades right now, but like a master of none. I think that was part of the reason there were some people who had more hesitation on him. But I think that he does a lot of things well. He doesn't make too many mistakes. The shot looks good. So I think he's going to be able to contribute. I would probably just lean B and just, put it as that.
Cool. Let's move on to the best pick in the entire draft at number 11, Matas Vuzelis. He's coming home, man. He's coming home. I'm telling you, man, Chicago just has a thing with drafting like Chicago or Illinois-born players. I am extremely biased, obviously, here. We have 4 wings on the entire roster. He's going to get a lot of opportunity. Like there were some rumors early on that he might spend some time in the G. And then after the very first practice, Billy Donovan was like, no, he's going to be in our rotation. I'm like, that's beautiful. Bad basketball team, a lot of opportunity, being at home. My biases, I'm putting it at an A, man. I'm putting it at an A. This is a perfect fit for the kid. And I need him to be way better than probably what he will end up being.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I would probably go, B plus, somewhere in that sort of range. I think, for him, it's going to really come down to the shot, where the shot is at, both short and long term. I think you see some of that in the preseason too. But like, I like seeing his growth in terms of attacking the rim and, handling contact, finishing with dunks. And then also what he brings to the table as a help side defender. So I like this situation for him. There's a lot going on. At least he's not a backcourt player on the Bulls. That seems like a chore to be right now. So, I like what it is.
Yeah, he's going to get his fair share of time on this podcast, so we don't have to spend too much on him because we'll be talking about him a lot this year. So we're going to skip 12 and 13 because Nikola Topic is going to be out for the season, and Devin Carter won't be starting the year. They saying maybe all-star break, maybe the entire year. I don't really know. Mm-hmm. I really like Devin Carter. I think he's going to fit well there when he eventually gets there. Then it gives us to Bub Carrington, the very last pick of the lottery. Also going to the Wizards via the Trailblazers because they traded – I'm sorry, going to – the Wizards from the Trailblazers Denny Abdia going over in exchange. I don't know what to think about Bub Carrington. I thought he was pretty cool because he had like the long sleeve shirt that he hooped in college. And then the very first summer league game, he had no long sleeve shirt. And I'm like, that was the reason I was rooting for you. And it's gone. But he's also going to get a lot of opportunity, right? With their guard, Corby and Malcolm Brogdon, who we mentioned are already hurt. And then Jordan Poole. I think Bub is going to be in their rotation very early on. And they're going to let him play through his mistakes, which I really, really like.
Yeah, I think this is perfect for a guy like him, just coming into a situation and being able to make those mistakes and also be able to showcase what he can do as a shot creator. That's like, his number one skill, and be able to develop on the fly as a playmaker, and also play, at least for the time being, with the Kyle Kuzma, Valanciunas, a couple guys who he can at least make plays with and play off of. So I like this for him, especially a guy who was super underrated coming into the college season last year and kind of worked his way up, even through the draft process, to become a lottery pick.
Yeah, they said somebody called him Baby Shea just because he gets to his spots in the mid-range and shoot. I'm like, let's slow down a little bit. Let's slow down a little bit. Shea is in a whole nother tier of player. But this is where things get really fun. We've gone through the lottery, but obviously every NBA draft is more than just a lottery. You're always going to get people drafted outside of it, maybe some second rounders that blossom. I'm going to pick the first one. And this is probably, everybody knows this dude because the way he's been balling out. It's Ryan Dunn of the Phoenix Suns. Got it at a complete A. I thought that when he was drafted that they'd have to experiment with him being like a small ball five, use him in the dunker spot for him to not be an absolute zero offensively. But if he's hitting pull-up three-pointers all of a sudden, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't trust that that's who he is. But I'm optimistic that he could be that one day. But as a true rookie, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But him as a defensive prospect was already insane. You saw how he ripped the ball right out of Cade Cunningham's hands, and he's just been a tear defensively. And now you're telling me he can hit 6 threes in a game on national TV? I'm in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the Suns did a perfect job in the draft. Obviously, a team that has to build around the margins, given where they are in terms of the cap. You get a guy like Ryan Dunn, who was probably one of the easiest guys to scout last year because it was like, he's one of the best defenders that I've evaluated the last several years. It's just like, can he shoot it enough, or be in like the perfect situation like a Denver or something where like he's just, running off of cuts and everything like that. But yeah, the way that he shot the ball has been ridiculous. I mean, there's been like a little bit of revisionist history from some people acting like, oh, I thought y'all said he couldn't shoot. Not like he couldn't, made 12 threes in 65 career games and, airballed a handful of those, which I think is just a credit to him more than anything. Mm-hmm. Like, he put in the work and is able to do this ahead of schedule. So yeah, I would agree with that. That was one of mine too, just clear A. And for a team that has Royce O'Neal, who's like 6'5", as their best wing defender, it's perfect.
Yeah, give me another one of the ones that you got.
Yeah, so I'll go with Dalton Connect with the Lakers. There's a couple guys in this kind of same general range for me, but like I like what Connect brings to the table in terms of his skill set as a shooter, somebody who JJ Redick has already, taken a liking to in terms of weaponizing him on movement and the success that he had at the college level on sideline and baseline out of bounds. I think that he could be a weapon for him in that way. And I also think, this team just needs guys who can make a play, shoot the three, and get out the way in some ways. Now, my only concern with him is just like how he's looked defensively. He hasn't been great in the preseason, and the shot is still a work in progress for him. But not necessarily work in progress, but he hasn't been hitting at the rate that we know he can so far. But I think he makes a lot of sense for what the Lakers do.
So right now we're 2 for 2 because I also had Dalton Connect. Let's see if we go 3 for 3 to wrap this up. I doubt it. I have this obsession with highly touted high school players, even if they're college / overseas, whatever it may be, didn't work out. So I have Isaiah Collier, who was drafted to the Utah Jazz. And again, another situation where like Keontae George is their point guard. It seems like they're gearing him up to be the point guard of their future. They do have Colin Sexton, who's coming off a really, really good year. But other than that, there's a wide open spot for somebody to play some real minutes. Jordan Clarkson's on the team, but like to play long-term minutes for them. And I think that a lot of the times, if we go back through our history of like the ESPN top 100 guys, a lot of those dudes, whether they have a successful college career or whatever, end up turning into real NBA players. Now, I don't think he's going to be the superstar that one day people, or back in the day, people thought he might be.
Mhm.
But being a contributing factor while being the 29th overall pick is something that I'm buying into.
Yeah, I was a big fan of his in last year's draft. Just his ability to get to the paint, make plays. It was as good as almost anybody in the entire class. So this Utah situation looks like, it's going to be, uh, looking for somebody with his skill set and is able to make plays and be unselfish, especially with some of the guards' skill sets that they have now. So I like it too. That was not one of my picks though.
Okay.
On the third one, I would go with also Iguodala, another
like
Phoenix
okay.
Sun, because I just think that his skill set also just being able to defend multiple positions, operate as a playmaking hub. He did that a ton at Marquette. He's got that little, 5 to 10 foot flip shot, like a Brandon Clark-esque, that he's, really effective at. And I think, in this context of the Phoenix Suns, if Plumlee is down or maybe he beats him out at some point in the year, he's going to be able to make a contribution, especially in that front court that isn't like the best in the league, with Nurkic there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes minutes from Plumlee throughout the course of the season. Like, again, my whole opinion about him is these few preseason games, but the passing is there. And I think that's exactly what they kind of want from that center position. Nurkic also pretty solid passer for a big man. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes some minutes away, man. Wow, that's it for the draft, man. I know people are going to be mad that we didn't get to their rookie, but the rookie got to show us something. Should go out there and hoop, and we'll get back to talking to him. Keandre, I appreciate you stopping by. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, HoopIntellect. Actually have some stuff coming on the rookies really here soon. And then, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, those types of things. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show for sure.
Of course. Anytime. The Rookie of the Year race hasn't officially started, but you can go ahead and get your bets in. If you go to FanDuel Sportsbook, here are the odds. Zach Edey right now is the favorite at plus 290. Then we have the first overall pick, Zachary Richese, plus 700. That has to be the lowest odds for a first overall pick ever. I can't prove that, but that's what it feels like. Personally, the moment Modest Buzelis was drafted, I got in. It was plus 1,200 then. It's plus 1,200 now. He's playing at home. I think that he has an opportunity to steal this, mostly based on opportunity. I mean, you got other guys here as well. I mean, if you really want to get crazy, at the bottom, plus 50,000. Who do y'all think I'm about to say? Plus 50,000, the 55th overall pick, Bronny James. Bottom of the list. I don't know if we've ever had a 55th overall pick with betting odds, but hell, it's there. Tell you right now, don't do it. I'm gonna tell you right now, don't do it. There's a lot of other options that are a lot better. Even if you want to go to a guy like Ryan Dunn, which we mentioned during the show, better odds at plus 5,000. A lot of rookies have a chance. It is completely wide open. FanDuel Sportsbook, go ahead, get your bets in. The NBA is back, and FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, wants you to catch all the action. Because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. But that's not all. To celebrate the start of another NBA season, FanDuel is giving everyone, existing customers and new customers, 3 months of NBA League Pass. For new and existing users, all you have to do to catch every tip-off, every buzzer beater, is to place any $5 bet on the NBA. Now, League Pass gives me the opportunity to stay locked into all NBA teams, whether it be watching them live or when it's most convenient for me. Just visit FanDuel.com/Kenny to get 3 months of NBA League Pass courtesy of FanDuel, or use the QR code found on the screen. That's how FanDuel knows that we sent you. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Let's welcome in producer Greg to come back to do the 5 Out segment. How we doing today, Greg?
I'm great. I thought Keandre was fantastic. I was thinking the whole time, he looks like so familiar, and I think I got it. I think he's a cross between Jackson Hayes and Ryan Hollins.
Wow.
You see it?
I can see it. The Jackson Hayes one clicked immediately. The Ryan Hollins, I'm not mad at that. I wonder how
I
he
wonder
would feel
how
about it.
yeah, exactly. I wonder how he felt about that. All right. So I think there's going to be a shot clock on the screen, 5 minutes. So I just set the timer for myself.
Let's get it.
So it's one, maybe two things. We'll start with the first thing. So I think this season, there's been some players that have either been forgotten about or they need to have redemption or narrative changing seasons. Now, these players aren't exactly all in the same category. And I know you hate ranking. So let's just say I want you to discuss the following players for the upcoming season and in terms of both their ability to contributing to winning and putting up numbers, in addition to the kind of getting their careers back on track.
Cool.
So we've got Lonzo, Ben Simmons, Jordan Poole, LaMelo, and Russ, who again isn't exactly in the same category, but I think still fits here.
Yeah, I'm not mad at him being there. So I think I would put LaMelo 1, because I think that he just has the most opportunity. And last time we saw him be healthy, he was an all-star, right? I know it was 2 years ago, but he was an all-star. And though the roster around him is not perfect, I do believe there's some stuff over there that he can really get people back in his favor, because you know how it works. It's what have you done lately for me type of league. And he hasn't done anything lately. I mean, you can argue he hasn't done anything at all because the team is always below 500, but I trust LaMelo's ability to bring his name back to the favor of the other young guards across basketball. Then I would say, so it was Lonzo. I'm be honest with you, Lonzo's probably dead last. I love Lonzo. I don't expect him to do much for this season.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just rooting for him, maybe, but I
Same.
see him as second there.
Really, the Bulls aren't really playing for anything. Top 10 protected pick. I just want to see him continue to be on the court. He's going to be on a minutes restriction for at least half of the season, 15 minutes. I just feel like it's hard to really impact the game positively that much and that much of a constraint to your minutes. And he won't play back to back, so it's a little rough for me. I think he's more of a like year 2 type of guy, year 2 removed from the big injuries, and then we could start talking about him.
Fine, yeah, I'm not giving up on him. I also think he's just such a winning player, especially when you compare him to the Jordan Pooles and Ben Simmonses of the world.
Yeah,
but it sounds like you have them ahead of him for this season.
I do for this season alone. Shout out to our Vox friend Lonzo Ball. Shout out to the guy. Damn, yeah, I forget. You did say Jordan Poole and Ben Simmons, didn't you? Oh man.
And Russ.
I would probably put Russ 2. I feel like he's going to be in a position where he's not going to be asked to do anything that he cannot do. This is a team with a ton of structure over there. I do believe Mike Malone is going to if he's not doing what you need Russell Westbrook to do. I feel like there's been some coaches that weren't really comfortable with saying that Russ, you're on the bench. He's going to be on that bench. So if he does end up being awful for a 4-minute stretch, we will not see him back into that game. I'd probably put him number 2. These last 2 guys, it's I know we're 5-minute shot clock. Okay, I'm gonna say I'm gonna put Ben at 3, Jordan Poole at 4. How about that?
Okay.
Because I saw one Ben Simmons preseason game where he looked like he cared about basketball, and I'm back. That's it. I'm back.
Not me. All right, we do have a minute 30 something left. So I'm gonna do one more thing. So on the Spurs here, and I think there might be a fan question about the Spurs as well. But if you had to put, let's say, 1 year's salary, or say 1 year's earning from this podcast on a bet, how many teams could you confidently say will finish ahead of the Spurs in the West?
Okay, so a year's salary is a lot, man. So I got to lock in. So I'm going to say OKC, Denver, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix. A year, that's a lot. A year.
I don't know if I could put Phoenix there, and I don't know if I could put Dallas there. Like if it wouldn't, it wouldn't completely and utterly shock me if San Antonio would finish above Dallas or Phoenix. Okay,
and I think part of that is because I don't think Chris Paul has a ton left. Like a lot of what I'm expecting from Chris Paul is like mentorship more than on-court stuff. Like obviously he's gonna get Wemby the ball. That's something that nobody did last season other than the Jones brother. But that would if that happened, I feel like something really Luka, God forbid, tore his ACL. Like that's the only way. If they have relatives like the same injury luck throughout the season, I'm saying it's a 1 in 100 chance that would happen.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think I'll put them as a play-in team, if not out of the playoffs. But I'm just saying, if you had to put so much money on it, there's only maybe 4 or 5 teams that I could confidently say will finish ahead of them.
I'm gonna say Memphis as well, at least 6. Now we're going to do Ask KB. All you need to do is go over to our Instagram, Enjoy Small Ball, and submit a message, man. It could be a voice message, it could be text, whatever. Submit a question. Let's see what we got.
Hey, Kenny, if they were to make a season 2 of Starting 5 on Netflix, which players would you like to see featured?
I love this question. Because this is something I was just talking about. I would love to. So I feel like you have to have a pillar. You have to have a Bron. You have to have one of the greatest players. I would love to see a Steph Curry one. It's a perfect time for Steph Curry because, again, the breaking up of the Splash Brothers. We'll see what this first season, well, not first season without him because he didn't play for like 2 years, but like post Klay Thompson Splash Bros, would love to see him in it. And I think he might get ragged on for being a boring dude. I think he's an interesting guy. So get to see what his day-to-day life is as one of the best players in the world. I also feel like you have to get at least a few players that have a chance to win a championship. Like having Jason Tatum, for what it's worth, was pretty damn cool to see what it's like to win a championship. So with the Celtics potentially going back to back, I don't know how it would be to go Jaylen Brown, to say like, hey, here's the Celtics, but from another perspective, right? Because they're so different in personalities. It would be kind of cool to see that. Or let's go to Canadian route, baby. Let's go get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's get one of the 2 favorites to win a championship in there. And then I'm also a fan of like, okay, season 1, we got all All-Stars. We got all All-Star superstar caliber players. Let's go get like a Rook. Now, this class don't have no crazy rookies that's like, oh my God, it's Zion, it's Wemby from the previous years. But like Rob Dillingham is a personality, and he's attached to Anthony Edwards, who's like a fan favorite from the entire series this season. I wouldn't be mad at that. But if you said no rookies, I understand because his rookie class is kind of bunched when it comes to something like that. I think it was a very eye-opening to see Domantas Sabonis in the light. So a player of that caliber, that like we recognize this player is great at basketball, but we don't know much about him as the person. I don't know who that is, but I would go, it's a starting 5, right? So let's go Jaylen Brown, hoping that Jason Tatum don't get pissed because we took him off the show. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We're going to go Rob Dillingham to get a rookie in there. Let's go. I feel like you also got to get a team that's a dumpster fire, right? You got to get a team that might have a bunch of turmoil. You need it's reality TV. We need some fire. We didn't get that in season number 1. They picked some good candidates. So let's go get somebody from like Ja Morant would be great. Not for the dumpster fire thing, but just because he's a talker, back against the wall, yada, yada, yada. So one other guy from the dumpster fire team. Let's go. Fan favorite, Jordan Poole, man. Jordan Poole. Let's see what Washington's really, really like. Man, his episodes are going to be like, it's going to get through like 2 episodes before they're eliminated from the playoffs, and he'll never be seen again. Let's add Jordan Poole in there. I'm here for Jordan Poole. Thank y'all so much for watching this episode of Small Ball with Kenny Beecham. Shout out to our boy Keandre for stepping onto the show. Like I mentioned, we will be having a ton of guests throughout this season. So if there's somebody you're interested to see us have on the show, let me know. I can use my connects. Don't say like Bron. Don't be crazy. But like I can use my connects to potentially get them on to talk about their level of expertise. Keandre, again, draft guy. If you want me to go get Cone because you're an OKC fan, we can go get Cone, baby. So let me know in the comment section. Appreciate everybody showing the support. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.